The Donner family uses 2 3/4 pounds of dog food. How many pounds of dog food will the Donner family use in 12 weeks? This word per tells you are multiplying. You can turn this into a decimal or you can leave it as a fraction. If you do, you need to look at your fraction steps because your first step is to turn them into improper fractions. So to turn it into improper fractions, you put a 1 under the 12 and you Texas the 2 3/4, which means 2 times 4 is 8 and 8 plus 3 is 11. And then remember, you just multiply top times top, bottom times bottom. Mrs. Barden has 7.5 yards of string. She needs to cut them into strips that are 1 1/2 feet in length. How many strips can she cut from her 7.5 yards? Cut means divide. So you have 7.5 yards divided by 1 1/2 feet. So you need to turn them into improper fractions first. Which means Texas. Then you need to keep, change, flip. Double check to make sure you are keeping the front number. If you are not keeping 7 1/2, once you change it into an improper fraction, should stay the same. So it should be 15 over 2. That should never change. So double check that. The other thing you might not be doing is simplifying. So if you think you have the right answer and you did all the steps, maybe it's simplifying that you're having trouble with. Luca has a collection of 95 books. She has read 3/5 of the books in her collection. If Luca reads 12 more, what is the total number of books she will have read from her collection? So of tells you to multiply. So you are multiplying the number of books she has times 3/5. That's going to give you how many she's already read. 12 more means you're adding. So you're going to add 12 to however many books she's already read. That's going to tell you the total number of books she will have read. So right now she's read her 95 books times 3/5, and then she's going to add 12 more to that number. Marisol bought 2 7/8 pounds of bananas, 3 1/2 pound bag of apples, and 2 bags of oranges that each weigh 2 3/4 pounds. How many pounds of fruit did she buy at the market? You are adding. If you are not adding, you're going to get it wrong. You can turn 7/8 into a decimal. It's just a big one. So I probably wouldn't bother. I would leave them all as fractions. Make sure that you have 2 bags that weigh 3/4 of a pound. So you are going to add bananas plus apples plus 2 bags. I would add them 2 at a time. Make sure that you start with your common denominator. And I would use a common denominator of 8. Andrew works at a car wash. This week, Andrew will work for 1.5 hours on Thursday, 2 3/4 hours on Friday, 8 hours on Saturday, and 8 hours on Sunday. Next week, Andrew will work the car wash for the same number of hours on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. What is the total number of hours that Andrew will work over the car wash over the next 8 days? So you've got 2 steps here. You need to add Thursday Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which means you need a common denominator, probably 4. When you're done with that, he's going to do it all again. So you're going to multiply times 2. So once you get those added, you could even estimate. 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So that gives you a rough start for how many he worked initially. Remember, you have to multiply times 2. So I just told you how to eliminate 2 answer choices without doing any math. Aaron needs 2 1/4 cups of flour to make 3 dozen cookies. Remember, there are 12 in a dozen. How many cups of flour does Aaron need to make 1 dozen cup of cookies? So, problem. Not always, but almost. So you have 2 1/4 cups of flour over 3 dozen cookies, and you want to know how much it takes to make 1 dozen.